afternoon. We're going to get started because we have a time constraint. My name is Tina Reynolds, and I'm here to moderate this panel. And I'm not going to give any introduction about myself and what I do. This panel is going to be talking about trending criminal legal policy, and they are going to be swift and fast and intentional. All right, so the first person that will be speaking is Angela Fraser. And I am going to give you just a brief synopsis. No, nothing?
No.
Just your name?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right, Angela Fraser.
I think there's bios in the...
Yes, your bio is long.
Bios in the package, you know.
Two sentences.
We'll figure it out.
Two sentences.
later.
Angela has over 25 years experience in community organizing, policy analysis, and advocacy on civil and human rights issues and criminal justice. She is the Director of State Legislative Affairs and Special Projects for the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, NACDL, and is responsible for the development, articulation, and strategic vision of NACDL's agenda on the state level. Angela.
Thank you very much. It's really good to be in this room with a lot of people who I have known for many years and haven't seen for a while, and a lot of new faces. I will just really briefly say that I am a non-lawyer on this panel, so I will be extra swift. I don't know how I got on this panel, but here I am. And I guess because I work with a lot of attorneys and people automatically think that I am, and that's fine. But I do say that I play one in real life and I let them hang out with me because I'm kind of cool. Right, lawyers? Oh, my
True.
So, we were going to do something a little different, and I think we're not going to do that now. I'm just going to say briefly a little bit about the work that I do, but before I do that, I remember maybe this was probably like 15 years ago, I was at a NOW conference, and I remember NOW, for those of you who don't know, National Organization of Women, primarily Caucasian women, but also Latino, Black women, Asian women are involved in that organization. And I remember looking out of the room and saying to these, because they were really trying to get involved with criminal justice issues, and I remember saying, to all you white women out there, it's only a matter of time before they come for your kids. I think this was like 12 or 15 years ago. I said, so you better get your asses up and start working with the women of color. And so when I look at this room and I see a combination of white women, white men, Black women, that we're all in the struggle, I think we can look at that video that they've been showing on CNN for the little boy in Kentucky that the police officers had constrained like this. They're coming for your kids. So it's time that we all work together to change the system, because they've been coming for our kids. And I don't have any kids. I don't know nothing about birthing babies, but I have nieces and nephews that I'm very concerned about, who are in Georgia, who they have an in-school suspension, at different varying times, who they put on medication. I'm very concerned about them, because I know I'm going to have to pick up the phone and call one of the attorneys in my network and say, hey, can you go and get my nephew out of detention? As I know it's coming. I know it's coming. So that's just one quick story. But basically what I do is I work on state level reform efforts around the country with our affiliate members and also community-based organizations who are working on a variety of different criminal justice issues. So any criminal justice issue that's out there, I'm kind of tracking it. I have 987 bills that passed this session that I'm trying to sift through across the country, from policing to, of course, death penalty in Nebraska, civil asset forfeiture. So any of the issues that you might see out there that you are criminal justice related, I'm working with Pat on some of the legislation that she's pushing. And my focus is pretty much state. So I will just say really quickly, there are a couple of projects that we have been working on recently. One is our criminal justice in the 21st century, and this is a project we worked on with prosecutors, defense attorneys, of course, and some other unlikely allies. And I don't have enough copies of this, but if you go on our site, this report is there that has not only the problems but recommendations. And then my big project that we worked on is our collateral damage report, America's failure to forgive or forget in the war on crime. And this is also on our website that has 10 recommendations, one of which is establishing a restoration of rights day, week, month, or something to that effect that we're also working on. So I'm, like I said, not a lawyer, so I'm not going to talk a long time. I'm going to pass this over back to you. And then if there's time for questions before lunch, because I know we're holding a lunch.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Angeline. Amazing. So this particular panel, so this particular panel is talking about trends, criminal legal policy. And so the next person we have that's going to speak is Pat. Yes? Sure. Okay. So Pat Allard is a senior policy and research consultant at Justice Strategies. I've known Pat for a very, very long time personally.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah, right.
Thank you very much.
Patricia is an attorney who has consulted for Amnesty International and worked on staff at the Sentencing Project. She focuses on children of incarcerated parents specifically. And Pat, I guess I want to ask you a question. What types of trends are you seeing now with children, regarding children within the work that you're doing, either through Justice Strategies or the Sentencing Project?
I think where I'm coming from is that in the past 15 years, since 1999, we've been on a re-entry crusade and focusing all our efforts on providing support for re-entry. No, don't get me wrong. I think we need to support folks on the re-entry side. And I think more and more of us have been moving into that direction and doing a great job. But I think now the time is right where we can flip things on the front end and really focus on, hey, we have kids also who are missing their parents, who are being devastated. We also have various resources that we know can be used on the front end. We'll keep working on the back end, but let's move on the front end. And that's where I'm coming from in terms of what the trend is. I do think we have seen drug treatment courts are a way in which people have said, okay, let's do something different. There are many problems, and I'd love to talk about those when we open for discussion. But it really is, there is a momentum now for us to really focus on the front. And so what we're trying to do at Justice Strategies and working with Angeline, and also Andrea, is really trying to look at, okay, how can we get courts, prosecutors to move in the direction of averting parents at the front end and not sending them to prison. And there are opportunities. We know that Washington State has done so. Not perfect, but it's a start. We know that in Massachusetts, thanks, Andrea, in terms of moving the legislation forward. And I think what I want to be mindful of is we're being placed in a situation where policymakers want us to focus on the individual offender, quote unquote, I put that in quotes, instead of looking at the bigger picture. What's happening to the family? What's happening to the children? They just want to focus on the individual rather than a collective family, which then becomes the whole community. So we do have chances to make something different. First of all, I want to focus on offenses, not just nonviolent offenses. And that is exactly what they're trying to do to us. So what are we going to do about that? I want to hear from folks, like, how do we manage the situation? Because right now, Washington State says parents who are engaged in a nonviolent offense can be considered for alternatives to incarceration, so they can serve their sentence with their family outside. Same thing in Massachusetts. These are good starts. But if we start going down that road, I'm fearful that this is where we're going to see state by state by state. And then 30 years, 40 years down the line, we're going to have to come back to the drawing board to say, hey, just because I shoved someone and I got a violent offense, does that make me a bad parent? Oh, hell no. I am a good parent. I should have been considered for alternatives to incarceration. So I just want to be really mindful in terms of when we move legislation, how we do it, and really try to really push things forward, push the envelope, and know that yes, policymakers want the low-hanging fruit. We don't need to hand that to them. So I'll leave that there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pat. And that's so important. The next person that's up is Jess. Jessalyn McCurdy is responsible for defending civil liberties in Congress and in the executive branch in the areas of criminal justice. Jess is also a member of the ACLU WLO staff for 5 years before accepting a position as a counsel with the House Judiciary Committee's Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security. So to piggyback off of what Pat was talking about, when we define people in categories, right? Violent versus nonviolent. How does that and how has that affected some of the trends that are now moving forward, Jess?
Well, I first want to thank Andrea for being our leader today and over the past few days in bringing women and men together to talk about women. This is phenomenal. I mean, think about it. This is a Wednesday in August, and we are all sitting on the campus, and look at how many people are here to talk about women in the criminal justice system and ready to work and make solutions to address women in the system. And so, I mean, that's all credit to Andrea for that, no doubt. But I want to pick up on the theme of the last panel, actually, families, and the impact on families and the stories of families. Because I was at a meeting a few weeks ago, and the question was asked, why do you do this work? And there were some of us in the room that were at the same meeting, and the question in terms of introduce yourself and say, why do you do this work? And my response to that question was, I do this work because of many of the women that are sitting around the table today. Kimba Smith, Andrea James, Phyllis Hardy, Stephanie George, Dorothy Gaines, Hamida Hassan. And I think it's important, as Karen did when she spoke a few minutes ago, to call women's names. Say her name, and that's very important, because what I'm seeing on the federal level as we discuss sentencing reform and criminal justice reform is the names are being lost in the policy discussion. There's not a connection to the women and families and men who are being destroyed by these families. It's becoming more of a discussion about politics and what I won't do and what I'm not willing to do, and lies, quite frankly. A lot of lies are being told about who is in the federal prison system. There's a lot of lies being told about the fact that there are no first-time offenders in federal prison. That's the biggest lie told. Now you have the National District Attorneys Association out there saying that they're state prosecutors. I don't even know why anybody's even asking them about who's in the federal system. But you have these state prosecutors out here saying that there are no first-time offenders in the federal system. There are lies being told about the fact that even though we know there are not a lot of people in the federal system that are in for drug possession charges, but there are a lot of people who are in for possession with intent to distribution charges, and that they're equating the fact that there are not a lot of federal drug possessor charges in with the fact that people are in federal prison are not violent. So they're saying, okay, if you weren't in federal prison for possession charges, then you must have some violence associated with your crime. That's not true. They're telling lies. They're painting a picture of the federal prison system and population. That is not true. And what I'm concerned about is that picture as it's being painted is going to result in us, Vivian, tinkering around the edges and not achieving full or meaningful criminal justice reform on the federal level. We have a lot of discussions that are going on now. We have a lot of a bill that has been introduced, some other bills that are supposed to be introduced in September. But if we don't have the discussion about who is in the federal prison, who is in the Bureau of Prisons, if we don't have an accurate picture of that, we are not going to achieve the meaningful reform that we need to achieve. And so that, which leads me to the families panel and the discussion we just had. And I just want to make the point that I know, as difficult as it is sometimes to continue to tell your story and to tell your story, we need you, we need that face. We need your face to bring a vision to how the laws that they are enacting on Capitol Hill affect, again, the real people, impact the real families, impact the real children who are separated from their fathers and mothers because they are getting life without parole sentences for drug offenses. And I've even had people come to me and say, that's not true. They're not people serving life without parole sentences in the federal system. And I had to whip out our report of 99 people who we have found, and that's not all of them. Those are just people we found who are serving life without parole sentences in the federal system for nonviolent drug offenses and property crimes as well. And so I just want to emphasize how important it is, even though understanding how difficult it is sometimes to tell your story, that we need you to continue to tell your story so that the truth, because as we know, truth to power, and so that the truth is out there and that decisions can be made based on who are being affected by these policies.
Jeff, okay. Sorry to interrupt. We want to leave some time. You all had said that you wanted to leave some time to have a conversation with the audience, so thank you for that. I think that's really important. And we did have a conversation last night about the direction of this panel, but because our time is so short, we've had to cut our conversation down. We're going to try to get you all into the conversation, but before we do that, we're going to introduce a longtime friend and a colleague of mine as well, Nkechi Tiapa. And Nkechi is working at the Open Society Foundation. Yes?
Yes, I'm speaking on behalf of myself.
On behalf of yourself? Okay. All right. Do you want me to?
No. Let me just start.
You can go ahead.
Because I missed the last night.
Okay.
What was?
All right.
So,
I might cut into it after 5 minutes. But.
Okay. A little over a year ago, there was this phenomenal rally in D.C. on the mall, the Free Her rally. And at that rally, I said, and I'll repeat here at this time, you can respond if you wish. I said, how many of you out here want to end mass incarceration for people in general and women in particular? If that's you, say, I do. How many of you all want to end mass incarceration for people in general and women in particular sooner rather than later? If that's you, say, I do. And then I said, well, you're at the right place at the right time. I said, this is the right organization, Families with Justice That's Healing, and the right leader, Sister Andrea James. And just as I said then, let's give it up for the Free Her rally. Let's give it up today for the Free Her conference. Working on federal criminal justice reform issues. Actually, Susan, maybe it was longer than 30 years. But anyway, over 30 years ago, not only were formerly incarcerated women not at the table, formerly incarcerated men were not at the table. Over 30 years ago, not only were the formerly incarcerated not at the table, but black folk in general were not at the table. No one impacted, either directly impacted or impacted as part of the racial group that was disproportionately impacted, were at the table. But nevertheless, policies were discussed and debated about and laws were passed. In fact, there were no formerly incarcerated people at foundations till Chrissy Voigt. Where's Chrissy? She's over here. Right, they came on the scene. So the Justice Roundtable, which began in 2002, literally began to change the complexion at the table. Building on the work, and I always got to lift her up, I don't know if she's still here, but building on the work Deborah Small started as Break the Chains, the Justice Roundtable helped to bring Kimber Smith to the table and to the hill. The Justice Roundtable helped to bring Dorothy Gaines to the table and to the hill. Your mom was always up there. Where is she? In D.C., Vivian Nixon in New York, Justice Roundtable helped to bring Karen Garrison and her twins to the table and to the hill. The Roundtable helped to bring Andrea James to the table. And Andrea, you need to be up on the hill and bring Brandy with you and Brandy's story to the hill as well. Dorothy Johnson's fight brought herself up there to the hill. It's past time that we get the young people to the hill. And I do have to acknowledge the role of Evangeline Frazier in ACDL, who has played and bringing a lot of women to our attention. Even you, Tina, she brought you to our attention. So talking about trending criminal justice policy, several months ago I attended a bipartisan summit co-hosted by an unlikely alliance of Van Jones, Newt Gingrich, Donna Brazile, and Pat Nolan. And I must admit, at least with respect to optics, it really was absolutely colossal, because now you had Democrats and Republicans at the same table. Who would imagine, Jocelyn, that in a huge hotel ballroom that will be packed as early as 8 a.m. in the morning with federal and local legislators, high administration officials, policy experts, criminologists, researchers, faith leaders, academicians, formerly incarcerated people, and millennials, all from both sides of the aisle. I mean, it was really, really ambitious, but it showed some of the trends that we are looking at. And as I sat in that audience, I reflected that criminal justice is not the lightning rod that it was 2 decades ago, thanks to a much more recent paradigm shift. You see, 20 years ago, Republicans and Democrats alike were equally horrible on criminal justice issues. Y'all remember candidate Bill Clinton left the campaign trail to oversee the execution of a mentally challenged person in Arkansas. Every year or so during the 90s, we were fighting against unwieldy omnibus crime bills, culminating in what I call the granddaddy of all crime bills, Crime Bill of 1994, which featured the largest expansion of the death penalty in modern times, the gutting of habeas corpus reform, the evisceration of the incarceration of the exclusionary rule, the trying of 13-year-olds as adults, the obliteration of Pell Grants, more and more mandatory sentences, refusal to address the crack powder disparity, and money incentives to states to build more and more prisons, to lock up more and more people for longer periods of time. So why do I say all this as I come to a close? Fast forward 20 years ago, fast forward 20 years to now, there is some light at the end of this dismal tunnel. There is bipartisan quote-unquote agreement that many of the provisions in that crime bill 20 years ago were a huge mistake. Even former President Clinton recently admitted that. Since that time, we had the passage of the Second Chance Reentry Bill in 2008, the Fair Sentencing Act in 2010, and now we are seeing something really unprecedented. We are seeing a move towards a more systemic commutations, okay? 89 lives have been changed. The first commutation really, unfortunately, was on her deathbed, but it was of a woman, Eugenia James. It is quite unfortunate that of the 46 commutations that were just recently renounced, only 4 or 5, I forgot which, were women. That needs to change. That needs to change. We need to know who those petitions are that have already been filed. We need more lawyers and legal workers to do pro bono work to bring more of these petitions to bear. It is past time, in conclusion, that we confront the disastrous policies of the past half century. This country's mammoth experiment in mass incarceration has been an abysmal failure. All it has done is produce conditions of life calculated to bring about the destruction of a race. And in a different presentation, at a different time, I talk about genocide. In the conclusion, I just want to give a quote. In the words of formerly incarcerated woman win. We must love and honor each other. We have nothing to lose but our chance.
Thank you. Lawyers they may be, but phenomenal. Phenomenal. All right, so we're going to have questions. If you could line up in the middle, 5 people in the middle. If you have questions to ask of the panel, please do. Go ahead, nice and loud.
Do you have any opinion about the potential legal strategy filing both systematically states and federal government for applying the 14th Amendment of equal protection is enough documentation about racism and poverty to show that inequalities exist, and applying the application of the 14th Amendment to reform the criminal justice system? Do you have an opinion about that legal strategy?
Doing it
Which is happening right now with the equal justice under law in DC. They want some cases of notice. Do you think if there was a movement in each state and on the federal level to take the 14th Amendment which guarantees equal protection, and right now there's inequality based on racism, on poverty? Do you have any opinion about that being a strategy and perhaps resulting in some settlements, given the state would not, the governments would want that one, that litigation filed? So I'm just curious about that strategy. Equal protection, the government is saying, I am obligated to provide you with the same protection, and despite the inequalities in this society. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts about the strategy of that on mass incarceration.
I'm just going to say something strictly off the cuff because I would love to talk to you to find out more about that because I'm not aware of that. But just off the cuff, my knee-jerk reaction is that I'm not quite sure if it's equal protection. I don't like what's already there. So I don't necessarily want it to be equal. So I mean, I'm not sure. So I personally would like to be educated on that so I can make it informed. So I don't know if any of my colleagues here.
Thank you. Anyone else want to take that on before we go to the next person?
Add that less on the legal strategies, but more on the legislative and policy strategies. There's really has been more of a movement around focusing on changing state policies to be able to influence federal policy, and then to be able to influence members of Congress when their state changes their criminal justice policy. And it's been successful. That's really the reason why we're even discussing this on the federal level, because the states, even though it's not necessarily for the right reasons, the moral reasons, the human reasons, it's for the fiscal reasons. They have had to. They can't afford the criminal justice system that they have built. And so that has now translated to the federal level as well.
Okay, thanks.
This is for the House Counsel, the committee.
Former.
I was at Wyatt, which is where all federal defendants in the Boston area are. And I would like to, and I talked to the state senator yesterday that was here, and I wanted to, ICE, which is Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, okay, has banned all their people from being held there at Wyatt, but yet the DOJ, and most of those, they are unfair, are probably not legal immigrants, while the DOJ has not, has kept putting American citizens there. And I would like to be able, which seems kind of crazy to me, like, if it's not good enough for illegal immigrants, why is it good enough for me? Because at the detention center, nobody's been convicted yet.
So my sister, what's the question?
So my question is, how can we get in Massachusetts, if Massachusetts citizens from being banned there? I'm sorry, I just had to explain.
How are the conditions there?
Conditions, particularly for women, basically women are in a room like this, all the women, and they can never leave that unit because the prison has decided, because one girl got pregnant at church, that women can never leave their area, no outside area.
Well, one of the reasons.
No church, no chapel, law library.
Right. So I think we were successful, for example. Now, unfortunately, this is not really how you want it to happen, but it's difficult to get, for example, the Bureau of Prisons to pull out of certain facilities. And is this
Well,
Somebody got, well, that's what happened at the facility in Texas, Willacy. And there was a riot there. And we raised holy hell with BOP about the fact that you knew this place was overcrowded, you knew the conditions were poor, and you sat there and let, now this was a private facility, but you sat there and let, okay, there you go. And so, but you sat there and let a riot ensue, and then that's the only thing that got you to pull out of your contract and move the people who were left in that facility. So I think that could happen. I think it's just, again, an advocacy kind of strategy that you should come up with. We just started out by, for example, writing BOP and saying, what are you going to do about this? There was a riot down there. People were killed. You cannot maintain, and this is a private facility. We are contracting with them, and this cannot happen. And furthermore, there has been a decline in the federal prison population, so you have room to move people out of certain facilities to put them in, quote unquote, I'll say different conditions.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else want to take on that question? Okay, our next question.
I read a book by Michelle Alexander talking about the exit strategy for the war on drugs. And in it, she talked about the 4 roles that we play in a lot of this criminal justice stuff. The organizer, the helper, the rebel, and I forgot the other one, the advocate. I already know my role as a rebel. So as a rebel, I was wondering if there any discussion around, one, eliminating the 13th Amendment that allows slavery to continue in the prisons while it's so profitable, pay somebody 23 cents an hour to do all this work. And then 2, my other rebellious thing that I was wondering if there's any strategy around is actually ending the war on drugs. Stop tweaking the policy and actually end the war on drugs. We know it's not about drugs, so why don't we just come to that conclusion and start working to end it, because we know what it's really doing, and that's devastating communities.
Great question. Anyone want to take that on, or all of you?
Well, that's a serious question. There's a gentleman named Christopher Irvin out of Baltimore who also brings up the 13th Amendment. You said abolishing the third. Is that what you said? Abolishing?
Well, the prison slavery.
That clause. Right. I just want to get clarification because there's a full amendment and then there's that. Okay. Just for clarification, it would be great to do that. I don't see there being a will necessarily to do that because of what you said, that the prison system, the prison industrial complex is so profitable. I mean, people, if you look at what happened post-slavery, right after slavery, right, how someone could be sitting at a bus stop and be picked up for great vagrancy because they're waiting at the bus stop, and then they have to work peonage, and that. There was a system put in place. That clause in that amendment is there, and I don't see it going anywhere. But I would like to connect you with Christopher because he's doing a lot of work in Baltimore, and he brought that up to us when we released our collateral consequences report, and we were like, wow, he's going there. So I would like to connect you guys, because maybe there is a groundswell movement. And then the second part of your question is, I'm sorry. Oh, the end the war on drugs. Again, profit. Again, even though states, I think, as Jesselyn said, realize that they're spending a lot of money, what they start trying to do is go into the private prison industry. And not every state, of course, has private prisons, but if you look at Florida, I mean, they got a whole lot of prisons down there. They got a whole lot of people incarcerated, a whole lot of black and brown people for, a variety of different things, mainly drugs. I just don't see the war on drugs ending. We had a report on drug courts, and one of the things that we talk about is decriminalizing drugs. Like, if you get addicted to something, like I'm addicted to chocolate, why? I don't want them to get rid of chocolate, but I wouldn't want them to make it a crime either, right? And then you look at how we're decriminalizing marijuana in certain levels. I was just in Denver a week and a half ago, and I didn't partake. I didn't even go to the store. I didn't have never did. You know, I was a good girl because I was like, you know, I really was a good girl. But when you look at states like that, right, where it's now legal to have a dispensary and, you know, sell it, and then this kid who just shot the police officer, he knew he was going to jail for less than 2 grams of marijuana, and you shot a police officer because you were afraid you're going to go to jail. There's a problem. There's a problem. So while you may have been going to jail, you know, now you're going to jail for prison for life, if not death. So the war on drugs, to the extent that we can continue to fight, I think we just have to keep chipping away, unfortunately, at it on the state level and hope that there's some changes on the state level, because I think there's still too much money entrenched in the system. When we're on the stock market, as we were, you know, on the block, there's not going to change.
Thank you so much, Angeline. Anyone else?
I just want to say one quick thing about the importance of the rebel. No social change has ever occurred, okay, unless there was a rebel. And I'm just going to say in the words of Frederick Douglass, he said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess in favor of freedom, yet appreciate agitation, are those who want the crops without plowing up the ground. And it goes on. But the rebel is a critical part of any type of social change. So keep on fighting.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much. Okay, last 2 questions, very brief.
Okay, Virginia. I am asking, the question is, I need your help on something that I'm currently working on since 2010. It's sentencing reform. The injustice of 5 years of unfair jury trial in Virginia remains uncorrected. When the Virginia abolished parole in 1994, anybody incarcerated on or after 1995 to 2000 who had a jury trial, the jurors were not instructed that parole was abolished until June of 2000. Fishback, inmate, prisoner, whatever, Fishback sued in Supreme State Court, and he won. However, the Supreme Court declined to make Fishback ruling retroactive to the other prison. Now, I was told about this in 2010. I just got it, and then I started working on it. I have boxes. People ask me, are you a lawyer? I don't even know anything, you know. No. But you don't have to always, but y'all, I appreciate
Okay,
it.
look.
But here's the thing.
No, I'm glad you mentioned this because I'm not quite, I know it's not the same thing, but I need you to look at it. In Maryland, there was a case that ended up overturning all those old cases, and people have been released en masse as a result of error that was given to jurors. This is just, have you heard about?
No.
Okay, then let's talk, because there might be something comparable with what you're talking about in Virginia, that there is precedent going on now in Maryland. And I'm talking about people where life sentences, for violent offenses are being let out as a result of error.
I just want to say this here. This isn't even about violent or non-violent. It's about the fact that unfair trials were given for 5 years to thousands of people, and they just want justice in their sentence. Thank you, and I definitely.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Can I just respond to that?
So
really
you and
quickly?
Nikki have a lunch date.
Yeah, I want to talk to you also because we are looking at doing some work in Virginia. We didn't know what we wanted to do, but I do want to try to talk to you about that.
But
That's okay.
I was outside, but what is your?
I'm Angeline,
And
and
you with?
I'm with the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers.
Okay, I just was asking only because we've been working with several, even the Democratic Party, the Black Caucus have supported these 2 pieces of legislation.
Okay, that's good to know. So we'll talk.
Both of you.
Thank you so much.
And I'm just gonna say one thing, real quick. I'm sorry. Okay, real quick. I just want to say that we have fought for retroactivity. For example, for crack cocaine law, the new crack cocaine law from 2010, and we're still fighting for it. And we're close to getting retroactivity for the crack cocaine law. And so I just want to encourage you that even though again, this 5 years has passed, to continue legislatively fighting for retroactivity. Sometimes they don't have the courage to do it when it happens, but later on they will.
Hold on, you can continue.
Because when we announced that they did 2 pieces of legislation in 2005, they asked us to hold up on it. Guess what happened? A parole commission is going on right now in Virginia. That's what they don't want.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Susan.
Okay, just really quick question. Well, thanks. Yeah, just a quick question. You've been talking about violent versus non-violent offenders, and I just want to ask you if you could talk a little bit about that. Something, I don't know, it's too big a question, but because I think that is going to be the dividing line around and we're seeing it. In New York State, I work on a project that's trying to organize the whole parole board accountable to the rules and regs of the parole process, because they are not letting people out who are convicted, who are parole eligible, done 20, 30, 40 years, and they're not letting them out because their crime is violent and who will never change, and that will never change. So I think we are going to see that, and we're seeing it at the federal level, right? President Obama said, if you're violent, forget about it.
Right.
So I think that's a big issue for us as a tribal movement or a consolidated movement around this. And so I'd like there to be some kind of conversation about that. So,
Agreed.
Yeah, we really have been painting ourselves in a corner by focusing on the low-hanging fruit. And when I say we, I'm talking about people in Washington, because we know what will move legislators and what will not move them. But we've really been painting ourselves in the corner, because if we're really serious about ending mass incarceration or even cutting the population in half or whatever the things that are out there, you're not going to do it with just the so-called first-time nonviolent, drug offenders. There needs to be a redefinition, number one, of violence. That's number one. Number two, there needs to be a look at evidence-based studies that show that people age out of criminality. So something that someone might have done in their youth at 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, they're not going to be coming out and posing a threat to public safety. We need to stop the mantra of nonviolent offenders, because it is going to be doing exactly what you are saying, making it very much difficult, if not impossible, for people whose crimes are labeled as otherwise to be able to ever get this.
Wonderful.
50% of the people who are in New York State are in violent crime.
Right, and we talked about this last night a little bit in terms of violent and what each state constitutes as a violent offense. What may be violent in one state is not necessarily considered that violent offense. So it's like literally each state you got to look at, okay, each crime, and there's got to be, total revision of each code with each crime, what constitutes violence. And it's up to us as advocates, lawyers, to not continuously throw folks under the bus. I mean, one of the people that we throw under the bus, and I see this done a lot, are sex offenders. Yeah. We throw them under the bus. We have to stop. Okay, we have to look at this criminal justice system as a whole. And it's not just violent or non-violent, because if you look at the classification of sex offender, someone urinating in public, that's a sex offense. And you can end up having to serve on a registry for the rest of your life. And I'm not saying that one is worse than the other. Well, yeah, pedophilia that's pretty bad. But we have to not, that person's a sex offender. They've got to go on a registry. And then, you have 5 sex offenders in your neighborhood. Did you know that? No, because I'm not looking it up to try to figure it out. We just criminalize every single thing, and we throw, one group under the bus over the other. And we've really got to take a look at how we talk about, offenders and stop it. We just hired someone who has a violent offense for our Clemency Project 2014, and I wanted to talk about that. So if anyone wants to know a little bit more about Clemency Project, please ask me afterwards. But we just hired him, and I met him, and he was on a panel, and I was like, you're great. We hired him. He has a violent offense. I don't know what the violent offense is. I don't know what he did. I don't know if he killed somebody. I don't know what it is. I didn't care. I didn't care. So we have to, as advocates, really start changing our vernacular, how we talk about people.
Wonderful. Okay, so
Thank you.
we're going to end the panel right now. I'd like to thank Angela Rikichi. I want to say one thing because I laugh and joke, and as a recovering lawyer, I always am making fun of the lawyers, but let me tell you something. These women sitting at this table. You know what, Angela? Nikichi is right. She brought us to the table for the Justice Roundtable. She got us on the platform for our voices to be heard. And she also connected us with all of the women that are here at this table. Jocelyn McCurdy, when we went across the country twice and collected thousands of signatures to get our matriarch of Families for Justice as Healing, Phyllis Hardy, out of federal prison after 23 years. Jocelyn McCurdy. And when we lost her, when we couldn't find her in the system, when we knew that she deserved and needed to receive a compassionate release because the federal prison had let her health deteriorate so bad, when she found out she got an immediate release, Miss Phyllis' grandma had a heart attack. And the feds hit her. Didn't tell us. They told her son she had a cold. The sons were at the airport waiting to go get their mother, and she dropped off the radar for 3 days. We couldn't find her. And it was the lawyer, it was Jesselyn, who we didn't know what else to do, who went and found her and made sure that door opened, and they finally pushed her out. In March, we got our matriarch back. These are her daughters. These are two of the women who she mothered for years, over those 23 years. So we want to say thank you. Ms. Phyllis is not here with us today. We might hear from her later on, but she is very sick because they neglected her health for 23 years. But she is with us in spirit. So Jesselyn, we love you. These are the women who are the daughters of Ms. Phyllis who did that 23 years with her and are very thankful that our matriarch inside, that she mothered, that we are thankful that you came to our help, rescue, all of that. So I just wanted to say, I laugh and joke about the lawyers, but let me tell you something. This is our team. We go straight. They're sick of me. She's sick of me. Just sick of me. And I don't care.